Ladies and gentlemen, another Podfest Asia for the books. CEO at AirAsia, Tony Fernandes, has now joined us in our virtual podcasting studio live. How are you keeping, my friend?
I'm all right, actually. Just a bit sweaty. Just did some gym. Trying to look like you, Wayne. Get rid of that belly, which has been with me for about maybe 30 years, So it's been growing, and finally it's beginning to shrink. Long way to go, but determined this time.
That's great. I think you're seeing more action in the gym. So we'll see a slimmer Tony Fernandes in the next couple of weeks and months.
Well, I hope so. It's been the biggest challenge of my life. I've had many challenges, as has been well documented. But this one has been the toughest, losing weight. And as you get older, it's tougher. But you know what? It's helped me tremendously in dealing with stress. And obviously, this has been an incredibly stressful year for many reasons. But, Azran from Naluri, our ex-CEO at AirAsia X, told me that best way of managing stress is exercise. So not only am I losing some weight, I'm hopefully dealing with stress a little bit better.
That's great to hear. I think that's very inspiring as well, especially those who want to, probably do some workouts in the gym, right? They could probably get some gym tips from you, more than beyond just entrepreneurship tips and like how to actually build a music airline. Because I think I haven't formally introduced you to our audience yet, especially in Podfest Asia's community. So we know that you are one of Asia's most recognizable entrepreneurs. You're best known for co-founding low-cost carrier AirAsia with Dato' Kamarudin Maranun and democratizing air travel in the region. So since 2018, you've been spearheading a digital transformation of your business and revealed AirAsia's brand new identity in October 2020 as ASEAN's Super App, a comprehensive lifestyle platform offering travel, ready-made food, fresh produce, health products, and fintech services. Let's jam in with our first hot topic in this podcast festival. Why are you launching a new podcast and having conversations with famous footballers and musicians like Black Eyed Peas, will.i.am?
My whole life has been about experimentation. I started off social media with Twitter, probably about maybe 12 years ago, 10 years ago. And then Facebook, and then a late starter to Instagram. And I had a blog for a little while, but just never had time to write it. And then, many people started saying, hey, why don't you introduce us to your friends and talk about some of your experiences with colleagues, friends, associates. And so, found a good producer in Mariana, and off we go. Let's see how it goes. And already, I'm a virgin at this, and looking at you and seeing how you deal with things, I'm learning.
I'm learning from you too, because you're going to be allowing us to borrow so much wisdom from you, especially on how to build things and starting things from scratch. So, we're very excited because when you're coming into this podcasting realm, right, in a way you're lifting the tide as well and raising all boats and actually telling the rest of us that, doing podcasting is actually a great way to shorten the distance between people together with storytelling.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the button. The great thing about social media, and there are a lot of wrong things about it, which hopefully we'll cover. But the great thing is, and my whole life has been about connection and meeting people and sharing experiences and learning. I'm learning every day. And social media, has opened up this world to be closer, not only to people, but your own staff. As you get a bigger company, the connectivity we've used in connecting our 24,000 staff through social media is huge, our internal social media. So, podcasting is another way of getting people to know you and getting people to ask you questions. And as we met in this new format, Clubhouse, that's a form of podcasting, I suppose, with a bit more interactivity. It is me. I like meeting people. Honestly, I like meeting people in the flesh. I'd rather be doing this in your office than on a computer. But it's better than not doing it at all.
Yeah, 100% spot on. And we would like to also know about your favorite podcasters, broadcasters, and also why one of the highlights of your life was meeting and being interviewed by the late, great Larry King.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken to podcasting a little late in life. Obviously, it's been around for a while, and it's now kind of gaining traction with Spotify and Apple. It's kind of, I mean, I'm a bit older than you, so I was probably the last generation of radio, talk radio, and now that's coming back with BFM, etc. So, you used to have Radio 4 or in the background listening to all these great subjects. And so, podcasting has become a little bit like that. So you kind of feel you're in the conversations. Joe Rogan, who was introduced to me by Dana White of UFC. And of course, from my footballing world, Peter Crouch is someone I really enjoy because, he played for QPR and he's kind of a West London boy. And he's not only a great footballer, he's a great guy, really salt of the earth guy. So, those two kind of stick in my mind a lot. But I've been listening to bits and pieces here and there. And there's a lot of good topics out there. Been distracted by Clubhouse, to be honest, but there's a lot of good stuff. So I'm a newbie in this, and there's lots to learn. And you kind of feel you're in the room, and closer to home, Gita Veerawan, I did a podcast for him, and I've been following some of his shows, which is kind of cool.
These are all great podcast shows and great podcasters who are completely crushing it, right? So when you started out as a music man, did it occur to you that you would buy an airline with 2 planes for Malaysian ringgit $1, which is about 25 US cents, right? Back in 2001, and then growing it to more than 240 planes, painting the sky red, and making air travel possible for everyone to over 160 destinations in and around ASEAN?
No, but I had dreams, right? As a 13-year-old, there's this famous story. I mean, it's not a story; it's true. When I was sent to boarding school as a 13-year-old, I arrived in my father thought I was a mummy's boy, which I was. I was quite a spoiled brat, and so he just put me on a plane to London, and no one met me at the airport. You arrived, leaving Subang Airport in those days was really like a little house. And then arriving at Heathrow Airport, and then, taking a bus to my school and walking up to Epsom College, and suddenly thinking, Jesus Christ, what have I done wrong in my life? This place looks like a prison camp. And I remember getting this blue box, which many boarding school pupils get. It's called a tuck box. And you kind of put your life's possessions in there. And I had my dreams arriving in school maybe a week into it, and said, I love planes. So I put a Qantas sticker on the box because that's the airline that flew me over to London. And I always wanted to own an airline. From like 5 years, 6 years old, it was always my dream. I had a Formula One sticker because I loved motor racing. My dad used to take me to Batu Tiga in Selangor. And of course, I was a crazy footballer. And I put a West Ham United sticker. Those were my 3 dreams. And inside the tuck box was music, original music, I have to say. 40 years ago, not many people were buying original music, but I did. I was very, very conscious of protecting IP, even as a 10-year-old. And I had ABBA and Electric Light Orchestra, I think, in the box. So my whole life was in this box. So did I believe it would come true? To answer your question, no. But those were my dreams, to own an airline, own an F1 team, own a football team, and be in the music business. And, I've kind of lived it, which is kind of cool.
Super
Not
cool.
all have been successful, right? Not all have been successful. Some have been abstract failures. But, life is not about always being successful. It's about doing things you love, trying things out. And if you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. But at least you try them out.
And that's definitely a mentality that we definitely want to delve deeper into later on with some more questions for you. Why is AirAsia known as a music airline?
Well, I suppose, actually, I didn't know it was known as a music airline, but many of us are from the music business. Certainly many are from the creative world. I think as an airline, we are more creative than most airlines. So many of us came from that creative angle, and then we continue to hire people with creativity. And we brought creativity across the entire airline spectrum. You know, our cabin crew, I always say that, you know, if you look at Singapore airline crew, they all look the same. They all look like came from some factory in Jurong. Same smile, same lipstick, same bun in the hair. And if you look at AirAsia crew, they're all individuals, you know, and so I suppose the roots came from us in the music business, that we wanted to have creativity and we wanted individuals. Can you imagine if every artist in the world looked like the same? Everyone looked like Madonna. That's what SIA is. But in AirAsia, we've created, you know, allowed people to be individuals and be creative, and that's pilots in the way they make announcements, engineers in the way they do things, our marketing staff, obviously. So if music was the inspiration, then let it roll. But I suppose creativity is at the very heart of AirAsia. And even our music playlist, it still makes me feel cool when we go on the plane and our playlist is so up to date, right? And, you know, music changes your mood.
Yes, definitely. And the music is the common DNA that many podcasters, of course, is in your blood as well. What's in your playlist? I'm really interested, because for this week, right, my playlist is full of Daft Punk, Homework, you know, the 1997 record.
Yeah.
And of course, it's a split, right? So is that your records as well that you go to?
I mean, I'm so diverse. You know, I've gone back to listening to a bit of Neo. There's a friend of mine who was in a big band called Nickelback, and I've been listening to that. But you know, Spotify now, I listen to a lot of music in the car and in the gym, and they do these daily music playlists, which are pretty damn good actually. And you know, I was in the gym just now listening to a kind of 80s selection, which has Tears for Fears and you know, so many great songs. But in terms of the most current that I'm listening to now is Chris Brown's latest album.
Yeah, and Tears for Fears, songs from the Big Chair, right? Has so many great songs. Working out.
Yeah. You know, listening to Spandau Ballet, you know, that period was great. That was just when I joined Virgin, and you know, Richard Branson was on a roll with Tubular Bells, Mike Oldfield, Sex Pistols. Then we signed together, Culture Club, you know, and wow, so many stories there. That 80s period, Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet and Human League, was one of the most incredible periods for the music industry. Actually, there was so much juice in that period, you know. So you know, music is something that is very, very large part of my life, and continues to be.
That's fascinating. And we have one person from LinkedIn who is watching this live stream, and he has a question for you. If there is one value in your love to football that influenced your dream of building AirAsia, what is it?
Oh, right. That's a pretty heavy question, but very easy for me to answer. You know, 1974, probably the best football team that never won the World Cup played. It was the Dutch football team. I was 10 years old, and Johan Cruyff was the captain of that team. And it had incredible players, you know, Johan Neeskens. I mean, just everyone was a brilliant player. And that Dutch team brought in something called total football, which was about every player could play in every position. And that is a management concept that I've tried to bring into AirAsia, that, you know, even though you're a pilot, you should know something about marketing, so that when you make announcements, you make announcements that make sense and are of use to the people behind you. And so I found airlines to be so compartmentalized. You know, pilots were one gang, engineers were another. And I kept referring to this story of the Dutch football team, that I wanted everyone to understand everyone and respect everyone's jobs. Finance should go down to engineering and understand, you know, the cost of engineering. They should know what goes into the fuel burn of a plane. And so That's a management concept that I have continued. And Johan Cruyff became one of the greatest football managers, rechanging Barcelona from an average team into one of the greatest teams in the world. And if you look at his management philosophies at Barcelona, you can learn a lot on how to run a company.
And I like the connection to these teams from the 70s, right? They were so amazing because they showed how the model of the Beatles, where if you have a band that is the sum of its parts, greater than sum of its parts, you're able to create great albums. But it was never the same after the Beatles split up. And John Lennon has great records, but Paul McCartney as well, but were never as great or the same kind of heights that they reached with the Beatles, right?
Well, I don't know. Wings were pretty big. George Harrison and Ringo Starr never quite made it, and John Lennon obviously had huge hits. But yeah, the Beatles were special. Different era, different time, and if you compare music then and music now, it took longer to make an album, so you had better songs, better quality. You had less noise in the market. People had more attention span. Now you've got podcasts, you've got Spotify, you've got Clubhouse. It's hard to promote. Then when the Beatles made a song, it was on every single radio station and you knew about it. So, and the pressures of stock markets and finance were less so. They were more private companies. So people did things properly. Creativity takes time. And so if you look at the artists in the 70s and the 80s, they all had longer careers. 60s. I mean, Diana Ross is still around. That was the first record I ever bought, the Supremes, because record company bosses gave them more time to make albums. And then corporatization came, and budgets and quarterly results, and artists were forced to put out albums faster. And so quality was not so good.
We're going to move on with the next question for you. What is your biggest joy and inspiration of pivoting the airline into a travel and lifestyle super app? We know that AirAsia.com, now has gone into restaurant, logistics, fintech, and even health industries.
Yeah. Greatest joy. The greatest joy is we did it. The fact that the greatest joy for me physically was me delivering food to people. That means we actually were doing it. It's the same as the greatest joy when I saw an AirAsia plane that I was part owner took off with passengers and staff that I paid. That was really exciting. But the fact is, to go from talking about something to doing it is an incredible thing. And when I was cycling that day, the first delivery and delivering a turkey to a lady who was probably more excited about getting the delivery from me than the turkey, it was a real high. I don't say we've changed the name from AirAsia.com to AirAsia Super App because many people were logging onto the website, but actually we want to drive people to AirAsia, the app, which is what most people are used to anyway in buying AirAsia tickets. But now you've got all these other services that we put together. So if I can add one more, it is the fact that we also have transformed people. A little junior boy who was a tailor student and an intern maybe 4 years ago or 5 years ago, then became my assistant and now is running e-commerce. That's the biggest joy for, it's like a lot of my kids are maturing into bigger jobs, and that is a fantastic thing to see, especially in this new digital world, because I'm giving many people a chance they never thought they would have, and they're excelling.
That's brilliant. And why is AirAsia Food coming to the Lion City, Singapore, my hometown, and with a raw that's bringing, your delivery of all-star riders, providing value, simplicity, and inclusivity for everyone?
Oh, you're Singaporean, Wayne?
Yeah, based in Singapore.
I didn't know that. Oh, okay. I assumed you were a Malaysian. Anyway, we're all the same.
Same country before 1965.
Yeah, correct. Singapore has been one of those incredible stories for me. It took me 7 years to get KL Singapore as a flight. 7 years. Can you imagine? That's a 35-minute flight. I mean, take aside block time and all that kind of stuff, and effectively a 3.5-hour ride. But it took me 7 years to connect the two countries. So it's very important for me that the first country we went out of, Malaysia, was Singapore. And it was damn exciting that we did it in 7 days. So, and the response we've had in Singapore is unbelievable, really unbelievable. We've had Ho Ching posting it on her Facebook. We've had tons of press. We have a launch, I think, next week. And the response has been great. It shows the power of our brand. It shows that people like us, and people are excited about us disrupting, one would say a pretty tight market in terms of number of players. So yeah, we're excited. We've received some support from the Penang state government, so there'll definitely be a lot of promotions regarding food Penang restaurants. So there we go.
Another question coming in from LinkedIn. Saurabh Sadana, COO of Black Box Research. How are you differentiating AirAsia delivery from others in the market?
Yeah, I mean, look, how do you differentiate an airline from another one, right? It's pretty much a commodity product. But if I was to ask you, how do you differentiate AirAsia and the plane from Tiger Air? Oh no, they're not called Tiger Air anymore. What are they? Pussycat? No, Scoot. How do you differentiate these things? People. Do you know your Grab driver? Do you know your your Food Panda driver or Deliveroo? But you remember your AirAsia cabin crew. You remember your pilots. You remember many unique things about the AirAsia flight. So, I'm not going to tell everything on this show now, but we'll live the experience, but there will be difference. And then what's the number one thing when you think of AirAsia? Value. You think of value, whether it's value food, whether it's the flight ticket. So people, value. And the third thing is helping restaurants that get looked aside. So if you think about AirAsia, we fly to places that no one else flew to, right? Bandung. No one flew to Bandung. Connectivity between Singapore and ASEAN due to AirAsia is much enhanced because all the big airlines weren't going there. So again, we're looking after the small man. We're not particularly. We will work with all the big chains as well, but we're looking after the small restaurants that get looked over, and providing this great food. So in the same way we opened up connectivities to so many destinations, we're going to open up Singaporeans to so many different restaurants and give restaurants a chance, and treat restaurants and our drivers as humans. Treat them as really our partners. Allow them to own the data. Allow them to do their own menus. Allow them to have much more creative freedom. So a lot of what I said earlier in the chat is applied to AirAsia food. But talk is cheap. Let's see whether we can do it. Saruba.
One of the feedback, especially from my personal experience of ordering food in Singapore, right? They always get my orders wrong. Like I order 3 packets of chicken chop, only 2 will arrive. And how I wish that sometimes they would just use a mobile phone, send a picture that there are 3 packages. And an error like that.
Yeah, actually, that's a great idea, Wayne. We actually do use mobile phone to let you know. We don't use a map. People have asked us, why don't you use a map to track the driver? Because that's expensive. We're paying Google too much. We rather give you, but we alert you in terms of messaging. And I don't think it's any extra cost to take a picture. I'll recommend that to Benji. But I'm not going to say we're not going to get it wrong either. We put bags onto the wrong planes as well sometimes. So that is quality control. We'll do our best, but it does happen, I suppose, and I'm sure it'll happen to AirAsia as well.
Why would you say that AirAsia is way ahead of schedule on food, especially when skeptics and naysayers are saying that you guys will never make it, in the airline industry, and it took you 7 years, like what you mentioned earlier, to actually get approval to fly to Singapore?
Yeah, I mean, naysayers are always there, right? That's good. naysayers have been writing off AirAsia for 19 years. How can we compete with Singapore Airlines? How can we compete with MAS? Who the hell is this guy who was selling, Culture Club records or Sheila Majid suddenly trying to do an airline? It's a fairy tale, right? But that's life, Who was Elon Musk? And now he wants to do Hyperloop travel, right? The world has to have dreamers. And some of those dreams will come true and some of them won't. And maybe those naysayers are right. But AirAsia has proved in its ability to disrupt the airline market. Whatever you think of us, we have changed flying forever. There was no animal airlines before us, right? There was no tiger, lion, loads of birds, Nok Air, whatever, right? Before AirAsia, they all copied us, and we copied Ryanair and EasyJet, right? It wasn't our idea. So, we think we have the ability to brand. We have our own style, and this isn't a zero-sum game, right? There isn't going to be one airline in the world. There isn't only going to be one food delivery service, right? There's going to be a few, and we may not be the biggest, but we'll certainly make money, and we'll certainly give a lot of jobs out, and we'll certainly help restaurants, and we'll have some fun doing it. We're super excited about being in Singapore. I love Singapore. It's been a real passion for me. I love Ho Ching. I think she's the smartest woman I've met, and it's a fun place to be in. I always tease Singaporeans, and I always I love going there. And it's a big challenge because it is one of the more advanced economies in ASEAN. And if we can do something positive in Singapore, that's great. Big Pay, which of course it doesn't carry the AirAsia brand, so it hasn't been written about, but this is an amazing fintech product that we built. We didn't go anywhere else but Singapore first, right? So we've launched in Malaysia. We've just launched in Singapore. We have about 5,000 members already, and I'll check out Big Pay. And so you can see that Singapore is always that challenge for me, and I love it because Singaporeans are hard people to please, right? They're very high standards. They spend a lot of time analyzing. If you read the newspaper reports, it's like, wow, that wouldn't happen in any other country. And so, yeah, I love it. I love the challenge of Singapore, and I love coming there, and I love the people. It's a lot of fun.
And we love you as well. So I think the love is mutual. And I think Ho Ching, hopefully she's tuning in if she's on LinkedIn. You also mentioned about Elon Musk because he and Mark Cuban are like from the same mold, right? Cut from the same cloth, just like you. I think you guys are always innovating, and even people like Mark Cuban, he's coming up with an app that's going to go up against Clubhouse in terms of adding more AI features, and it's actually branded as a podcasting app. Do you think that in this space, especially social audio, right, having new entrants like the likes of Twitter Spaces, even Facebook is working on something on social audio, and Mark Cuban's Fireside seems to have a lot of AI features that allow you to follow the right people without you doing the heavy lifting and having to follow and read bios one by one, and you can just start a room with the people that you want to talk to. Do you think that having more competition is great for this space?
Oh yeah, I mean, I come from the world of competition, right? So I don't like Facebook, but more power to them if they want to do things and there's an audience. So I think it's good. I don't agree with AI per se in that you don't want to meet, when I was in university, I didn't join the Malaysia-Singapore Society, and Malaysians and Singaporeans thought that was weird. And I said, well, I'm going to live with you for the rest of my life. I want to meet different people. So I don't want an AI tool telling me to meet similar people. I want to meet different people. I want to meet Wayne, right? I haven't met Wayne before. AI may not have brought us together. So I still think whatever happens in this tech world, human intuition and human thought is still much more important. And, I'm sure one day a neural network could probably think like me. Scary thought. But, until that day comes, I still prefer human judgment in that. But yeah, no, more power to more of these social audio sites. It's the more the merrier. And competition is good. Competition is good, as long as it's fair competition.
Let's hear about your take about Facebook, because you mentioned about Facebook. Why are you 100% with Apple in the Apple versus Facebook feud, and your heart actually lies with Apple, as privacy is our choice and Apple is giving? That's what you wrote on your LinkedIn.
Yeah. Well, I'm not 100% with Apple, by the way, but 100%. I think all of these tech companies are damn bloody dangerous. Well, I'm very close to Google, but I also think they're a dangerous company. So privacy is your choice, right? If you want to be, I'm very public, and so that means I have to take the good with the bad. There are many people who whack me. There are many people who like me, but that's my choice. And I think I should be given that choice. I don't think Facebook should control my privacy. I also have a dislike for Facebook because, just the way that their management style. And I think they have done very little in fake news. The problems we have in Myanmar with the Rohingyas, 100% caused by Facebook, by fake news. There are about 250 Bitcoin sites at one stage that I was propagating Bitcoin. And so you can tell me a massive conglomerate like Facebook cannot control that with all the algorithms. I think they were feeding it because these people were paying advertising to promote this fake news. Then most of their money comes from smaller companies. So I just think they're morally wrong. They put profit. And then when you see how like we've been treated with tech companies, I mean, that tech companies are a beneficiary of COVID. Airlines are not. Yet, my God, their credit controllers treat us like, we are the plague. And so I feel they have zero social conscience. And I have very strong views. After the New Zealand shooting, when that guy went and shot Muslims and it was live on Facebook, I thought that was disgusting. I had 700,000 followers, and I mean that's not a small following. I closed my account instantaneously because I can't be a hypocrite. I then closed Twitter because it's just an angry place, and mostly Clubhouse, mostly LinkedIn, mostly, it's not 100%, mostly Facebook, Instagram, which is owned by Facebook. That's a problem I have, by the way, but Instagram doesn't really propagate fake news. Most of it can be controlled, and so they need to do more in that aspect. And most of it is what I like about Clubhouse, certainly until this point, is you're talking to real people. In Twitter, you don't know who the hell you're talking to. There are all kinds of fake names, and there's so many trolls and stuff. So, I think Twitter could do more in terms of not having anonymous in there, etc. So, I could talk hours on this, but I have pretty strong views on certainly Facebook.
So you quit Facebook, and we're seeing you on Clubhouse more often. And I love, to just jump into the room and just listen in while you're having conversations with people from around the world. And I think the first time when you joined a Clubhouse, I think in mere minutes, right after you joined Clubhouse, that's where we serendipitously met together on stage. I was invited up on stage. I was able to ask you about your biggest joy of running an airline. So for those who weren't on Clubhouse that day, and with the ephemeral nature of Clubhouse, they probably missed your answer. So I'm going to ask you this same question again. What's your biggest joy of running an airline?
Oh, wow. I need to answer in two things. I'm not sure what I answered to you. So firstly is providing dreams for my staff, providing a platform so that they can go and live their dreams. I live my dream. So, providing a platform for someone who's a dispatch boy to become a pilot. That can't happen in many airlines around the world. So that's one. And the continual joy of seeing young kids going out and achieving much more than they would have in any other organization. And two, I'm sure that there are many people who want to hang, draw, and quarter me right now for not paying their refund. But generally we have made people happy by flying, whether it's taking them for a holiday, whether it's taking them back to their hometown, whether it's taking them back to their ancestral hometown. We have provided loads and loads of joys, and walking into an airport and seeing people happy and people coming up to me and saying, hey, thank you so much for AirAsia. I never thought I could go to this place and be in this country is a high. I've never taken drugs. I've never, ever smoked. I've never needed that because I get highs in different ways, right? I take alcohol, so I do drink. Though I'm off drinking now, but I don't drink for the taste. I drink for the feeling at a party, right? I don't drink alone. I always drink at a party. But my highs come from my own staff, interactions, and making people happy. That's a real high, and that's better than any smoking or cigar or, I imagine, any drugs.
I love that. I love that you're always lifting others. And how much time have you got left for us?
Well, my son's texting me. I mean, just fire away with a couple more.
Okay, last two questions. Why are you a firm believer of never wasting a crisis? And you think that cooperation and collaboration, not nationalism and jingoism, is a must for ASEAN to reopen and recover and in time reach its full potential post-COVID?
Wow, that's heavy questions. Okay, number one. What was number one? What was the question again?
Why do you think that nationalism and jingoism isn't the way forward, and cooperation and collaboration is a must for ASEAN to reopen and recover?
I thought there was a question before that. But anyway, in terms of that question, I mean, that, AirAsia is a microcosm of that. We don't care whether you're Korean, Thai, Malaysian, whatever. You're an all-star first. And we don't look at, we're a Malaysian airline, we're an ASEAN airline. And we're here to make ASEAN smaller. Now, that sounds like a Miss World kind of comment, world peace and all that. But we think the future is on regionalism. I've always believed in that. Whatever one says about the European community, it has one, achieved peace, two, great economic benefits. Yes, the UK have, maybe they went too far with European Parliament and a lot of bureaucracy, but from an economic standpoint, it's good. Now, economics keeps the world at peace. Let me be really real. Why are Palestinians wanting to kill themselves and blow themselves up? Is because their life is not worth it. They might as well do it and hope they have a better place in heaven. You don't have that in Singapore. You don't have that in Malaysia because we have a pretty good quality of life. Everyone. Now, it can be a lot better for sure. And I'm a big believer in wealth redistribution. I think it's so important. But economics drives peace. And one Singapore and one Malaysia isn't going to be able, if you put people first and not nationalism, then ASEAN is definitely the way forward, right? Look at AirAsia. The Malaysian market is one size, but the ASEAN market is much bigger. The Malaysian cargo market is one size. ASEAN market is much bigger. The S League will never be big. But Singaporean teams in an ASEAN league, imagine the best football matches were always Singapore versus Selangor, right? In the Malaysia Cup. And so regionalization is the way forward. It isn't necessarily about a single currency. It isn't necessarily about a single parliament, though that would have been fun to have seen Lee Kuan Yew and Mahathir in the same parliament. But, we need to build a bridge across the two of them physically in parliament. But, if politicians and corporate leaders put people first, then I think it's the only way forward. Now, the problem with corporate leaders is they like monopolies. So they want to block competition. Why did I take 7 years to come to Singapore? Because someone in Singapore didn't want AirAsia to hurt Singapore Airlines, right? But who suffered? The people. So if you put the people first then you'll always make regionalization is the right way because it's a bigger market, and the cost of business should go down. It should be easier to move a package from Singapore to Indonesia, but right now it's cheaper to move a package from China to Singapore, and quicker from a customs point. So we need to put down this territorialism. We need to not worry about, as I told Tokopedia, yeah, you have a big market, or Bukalapak, but imagine if you could have 600 million people, right, as opposed to just 300 million people. So I'm a big believer in ASEAN. I created this word with an Indonesian minister, ASEANist. I would love an ASEAN Football League. I have pushed and failed to rename the SEA Games ASEAN Games. Why the hell is it called the SEA Games? Because they say Timor-Leste is there. So Timor-Leste is not part of ASEAN. So what? The rest of it is ASEAN. And, I'm a big believer in I hate, and if you take a step back, racism is the biggest problem. Religious diversity is a big problem. If we all appreciated each other's religions, if we all appreciated each other's culture and race and stuff, wow, the world would be a lot nicer. I mean, that really is a Miss World comment, but I live and preach because I've lived all over the world, right? And I see it all over the world. And I think, what a waste of time. We're all the damn same, and COVID has shown it. Doesn't matter what religion, race, creed, color you are. If you're infected, you're infected. And, the world had to work together. The RNA for the Moderna was a Muslim couple from Turkey who discovered it. And so, hopefully COVID has made the world a smaller place. I don't think so, because even on the vaccines, you have everyone fighting, and, Europe doesn't want to send vaccines out, and, China wants everyone to use their vaccine. So it's a dangerous time for the world, but, hopefully common sense will ensure. And number one in keeping the peace is economic and trade flows. The more business you do between each countries, the more flights there are between each countries, the more shipping lanes, the more integrated our world is, and a greater chance of regionalism and less of this, world wars and these regional conflicts. Economics drives everything, 100%.
I absolutely love that. I love that you also talked about the abundance mentality versus the scarcity mindset and bridging relations, right? You mentioned about Malaysia Cup. I miss those Singapore Selangor, Singapore Kelantan, Singapore Pahang games. I wish it's back on TV again.
I mean, but nothing will. Those maybe too young on this, listening to this, but obviously you're kind of my age, Wayne. Though you look younger. How old are you? 45?
40 year, 44.
There we go. So I'm not wrong, not far off. Well, I'm 56. But going to the Kallang Stadium for a Malaysia Cup, with Fandi, my dear friend, and all the Dola Ahmad and Hassan Sani and James Wong, there is no atmosphere. I've been all over the world. But I've been at Wembley, I've been in Bayern Munich Stadium, I've been in Barcelona. But for me, Malaysia Cup and Merdeka Cup, the atmosphere was amazing. And young kids, we get a little bit in that Tiger Cup thing. But the passion between Malaysia and Singapore and Selangor and Singapore was amazing at Kallang and Merdeka Stadium. And still my hair stand thinking about it.
It's like Man U versus Liverpool. It's a derby. Selangor, Singapore.
Yeah, I hate both those teams, so I never watch it. So.
Okay. Last question before we let you go. What is your advice for those in the travel industry, and why do you think there is light at the end of the tunnel and it's great to stay positive?
Well, I think there's only one way to stay. B is positive. You're not going to get anything by being negative. By preparing for risk, yes. That doesn't mean you're negative. By looking at the downside, yes. But you're much more likely to succeed if you're positive than if you're negative. And there's definitely light because, this time 12 months ago, we didn't have a vaccine. We didn't know anything about this virus. It was killing people, and it was spreading like wildfire. Now we know how to control it. Now we know a lot about public health. There was a lot of debate on whether you wear masks, don't wear masks, all this kind of stuff. And now we have better testing. Now we have better medication and treatment. And of course, vaccines have come along. On the positive side, we're a lucky generation. We've lived through a movie. You only see these movies. You only see these Will Smith movies where the human race is devastated, or Contagion, or whatever. We've lived through it, and we're still alive. And as a world, we'll rebuild it. And as a travel industry, we will rebuild it, and we will come back stronger. So, hang loose, stay tight. I think by the third or fourth quarter, things will begin to remain normal. And humans have a wonderful habit of forgetting. And within 2 years, COVID will just be like 9/11 or SARS or bird flu. But boy, you got a lot of stories to tell your grandchildren. This is like living through World War II, living through, being in an occupied territory, because we had curfews, we had lockdowns, we had a lot of pain. But there is definitely light because of all the things that I mentioned. So stay positive. It's a lot better than to stay negative.
Thank you so much, Tony. This has been an incredible 40 minutes, 46 minutes actually. So thank you so much for your generosity and allowing us to borrow your wisdom. Do you have any last message for our Podfest Asia community?
No, I mean, I suppose the last thing is keep communicating. I mean, it's great. I didn't know Wayne was Singaporean. Keep communicating, keep meeting people, keep exploring ideas, and then you begin to see that you're all the same. And stay humble, stay real. If you become a massive podcaster, don't forget your roots. Don't forget your roots. And I think the greatest personality trait one could have is humility. And stay real. Staying real, staying positive, and have some fun.
Definitely have some fun.
Fly AirAsia. Buy AirAsia food. And use us. Have some fun. Thanks, Wayne.
Thanks, Tony. You have a nice weekend. I'll see you around very soon. Most likely in Clubhouse, yeah?
Okay, good luck in your 24 hours Podfest. I heard you're doing this for 24 hours or something crazy.
48 hours, 50 speakers.
48 hours, okay. It's like a Le Mans ×2. Have a good one. Take care, my friend.
Thank you, sir. I'll see you around. Bye-bye.